Regina Burris, owner and wedding coordinator at Weddings by Regina Marie.
And I'm Cate Berry, photographer and owner of Cate Berry Photography. The We Do Wedding podcast is devoted to sharing real talk from the vendors who say we do to making your wedding dreams a reality.
Each week, we'll talk with wedding professionals who share about their businesses, offer tips and expertise, and divulge behind-the-scenes stories and secrets that will help you plan your perfect wedding. As a wedding planner and photographer, we spend more time with the couples than most other vendors. From the months and sometimes years-long planning process, the engagement session, and the wedding day itself, we are with you from beginning to end. So who better to bring you the raw and nitty-gritty? Stay tuned as we bring you another episode of the We Do Wedding podcast. What do you wish your wedding clients or their vendors would do that they don't do now? Like something that you're like, oh gosh, I wish we would just be, if they were more prepared or if they could have handled this better.
Oh, first one, and then I'll let you go. Hire a wedding coordinator.
There you go. That was good.
Okay.
It makes everything so much easier.
So I would say for like the wedding film, we found some couples that don't do things like first looks, letter readings, personal vows. And of course, we're not saying, no, you have to do these, but
we were that couple too. Though.
Yeah, we didn't. Our one wedding, we didn't even do that. But we will say that even something as simple as a letter reading adds so much element and story to the overall film that it makes our job a lot easier, and it's great for the film. So I would say that kind of stuff we would strongly encourage our couples to consider.
Yeah, I think overall just doing wedding couples would take the time and have the courage to do something more personal and creative in their weddings, rather than just kind of, like the cookie cutter. And we get it. It's a shortened amount of time. You have 8 hours to get everything in. Mm-hmm. But I think anytime that a couple adds like a personal touch, whether it's cultural, family, something, like a song or a special dance or something, even like if they, it's something like private that has a lot of meaning, but they tell us about it and we can incorporate in the video in a special way. I think that it's always just more meaningful when they incorporate something personal and creative, different from the norm.
Okay, so as a coordinator, I have noticed, the letter readings. I've had some, and it's usually the groom giving it to the bride, a letter for her to read. But I've noticed that couples who have done it, and then there's been times where I'm like, I just thought it was a thing, like, oh, it's a given. He's just gonna give her a letter. Mm-hmm. And so in the hotel, usually in the morning, I'll peek in the bride's room. She's getting ready, and then I'll go to the groom's room to make sure, the guys don't need anything, or, any couple. But I've gone to the groom's room at times and I'm like, okay, so do you have anything that you want me to give to her? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, did you like get her a card or a gift, or like, do you have a letter that you want her to read? And they're like, I'm supposed to do that? So I had that happen once, and I was like, no, twice. And I was like, from now on, I'm just telling a groom. So I will pull a groom to the side on like the rehearsal and be like, just, as a reminder, like, or I'll send them an email in the weeks before, but just as a reminder, make sure you get her like a card or a necklace or just something nice so that they have that moment. Cause those moments are really, really special. And then once I get it, going over to you guys, the videographers, and I'm like, I'm gonna give the bride this letter. It's from the groom, and I usually give it to her maid of honor here, just so that there's a nice little setup. And so I'll give it to the maid of honor, and I'm like, give this to the bride as a videographer's recording so that they capture that on camera. But that's just my spiel. But is there any way that you guys suggest that happening, or is there any formula to that?
So it almost always seems like we're being a little bit too proactive. Whenever we first meet with our clients, we have all those questions and we say, we understand that this is all like, this is, we're so early in all this. But as we're talking about our film, we use examples from our films and say, in this instance, they did a letter reading, or here they had the personal vows, and how we were able to use the audio and how we were able to use that moment. So we always kind of plant the seed and we say, we know you probably have no idea right now, but think about doing a first look or a letter reading or personal vows or something, like that you want to incorporate. And it's nice because we can use our video like as an example and say, see like how we were able to overlay that audio over this and that. And a lot of times, they're like, oh, we weren't really like thinking about it, but that is a nice touch. And so we try to like plant that seed very early on. We probably don't bring it up until way later, again, because we don't want to pressure them into doing something that they're not comfortable with. But we definitely, we try to plant that seed. We try to show them examples and stuff. And I think,
and
yeah.
Well, we joke too, because some of the brides are like, "Oh, well, what if I cry and stuff?" We're like, "No, that's good. We want you to cry. It's not embarrassing.
We need you to cry."
It's gonna it adds emotion to the film. So
we were like very not smooth about it when we would talk to our couples. We'd be like, and we love it when you guys cry. Like,
I'm very blunt about it. I'm like, it's amazing when the grooms cry.
We love it when you guys are sobbing, but we work with a photographer and she had such a awesome way of putting it. She goes, and just so you know, if you get emotional, like it's no big deal. Actually, the tears add a little twinkle. And I was like, oh, that's so much smoother than how we put it. We're like, we want you to cry, okay? Give us more emotion.
See, I love those pictures.
Now.
When I get photos of like, I'll ask my couples, like, are there any pictures that you don't want me to post like on my website if I'm using your pictures for marketing or social media or anything? And the grooms are always like, if there's any pictures of me crying, like, don't post that shit. And I'm like, I love those. Like, what do you mean?
And then as the videographer, I'm like, oh, I'm posting that shit.
Yeah. No, we're like, if you're
that.
crying, and he'll always say like, we're miking you up, so we're getting those sniffles too.
Yeah, when we mic our groom, the groom up, we're always saying like, hey, it's on, it's recording everything you say, every sniffle that you have. So yeah, make sure you get those tears out, buddy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we embrace the tears. The more emotion, the more tears, especially if like the wedding party or the parents are crying, that's gold.
We always mention it. I've always
sounds
like,
sick.
I know. I feel like we're so weird. We're like, and like, if you have any criers in the family, let us know ahead of time. Like,
just gotta have a hawk's eye on them. Yeah.
Oh, your mom cries? Okay, Ursa, zoom in on her.
That's her right there, right in the purple dress. Got it. Okay.
So familiar.
I did want to backtrack on something that you said, because that's exactly what I was referring to when I said every vendor has said the same thing. Mm-hmm. So every vendor, and I said this in the last episode, people are going to think that we're coaching you guys to say it, but we're not. Every vendor has said, get a day of coordinator. But I've asked, what the tip is, and they've said, get a day of coordinator. Why? What do you feel makes it your job easier or the day flow easier with a day of coordinator that couples might not understand if they decide they don't want to get one?
I am personally, having been a bride and having had so many friends get married and every couple that we talk to, I think couples don't account for how busy they're going to be that day and how overwhelmed they're going to be. I mean, you spend a year plus planning it all and you think like, okay, everything's in place, but the day of, it's a blur. And you hear everyone say it, but I don't think people actually appreciate how much of a blur it is and how out of kind of touch as a bride and groom you are with everything that's happening behind the scenes. You really can't be present for all those things. And I think when you have a wedding coordinator, it's just someone that's like your advocate, your voice to make sure everything is carried out the way that you want without you having to take away, like you plan this whole day, you know, of everything that you wanted. And if you're so busy following up and checking all the boxes and all this stuff, you don't even get to enjoy it. Like you plan it so you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think a wedding coordinator, it's priceless because it gives you that freedom to really enjoy your day that you plan without having to be worried about is everything falling into place.
And as a vendor, I mean, the coordinator, you're the captain of the ship essentially. So if there's ever a question that we have, we don't want to have to go to the bride or the groom and ask them questions like, hey, what's going on? We want to be able to go to you and say, okay, what time is stuff starting? What time is the first look? What time can we expect the ceremony to begin? Like, we don't want to be running around scrambling, asking the photographer, hey, do you know what's going on? We want to be able to go to one point person who is overseeing everything so we can, you know, do what we do.
And one of the biggest things is whenever there's a wedding coordinator, it's someone who's kind of keeping everyone informed of any changes,
Exactly,
any things that come up. I think for us, it just takes so much pressure off that we know someone is keeping everybody in line. Otherwise, your vendors are all worrying about each other too. Like, oh, does the DJ know to like come get us when he does this? Does Justice of Peace know like that we're not ready yet? Like all these things that, and then it could take away from whatever that person is doing because they're so busy making sure that, you know, everyone is in communication or in line. But when you have a wedding coordinator, they're the one managing all that, and they have such a like grasp on it that it's just like seamless, you know?
Yeah.
Like we could do our job and then like know that we can wait for the direction and not be seeking out directions from anyone that will give it to us, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to ask you guys this question, and I want to ask Cate as well. A lot of times I've seen couples who will hand me, this is the timeline that my photographer came up with. And speaking with certain photographers, I've had them say, you know, like, well, I'm just so used to doing weddings without a coordinator that's kind of like the role that I've taken on because I'm the one that's with the couple the most on the day. So I kind of just set this timeline. So do you guys come up with your own timeline? And do you feel like if I were to say, you know what, I looked at your timeline, I looked at the photographer's timeline, I looked at the caterer's timeline and the DJ's, and I kind of synced them all together and moved some things around, but here's this general timeline that can accommodate everyone's schedule and what everyone needs to have done. Is that an issue for you? Because I've had maybe one or two that it's like, you messed up my timeline. I'm going by my timeline and I'm going to do what I want to do when I said I was going to do it. And I'm like, dude, no, that's not how it works. Like, you're not the only vendor here.
I would say absolutely not.
No.
In fact, that makes it easier for everyone.
So we usually have that talk and say someone's going to give you a timeline, and when you fill it out, give it to us and we'll go over it with you, we'll go over it with them. I think that we've mentioned almost in every meeting to our clients, like, have one timeline and give it to all your vendors, because, you know, and it just kind of, I don't know that we've encountered like getting different kinds of timelines. Like we've usually
we never had
know
an
the
issue
photographer's timeline, and we say just give us that. That's totally fine. And when we meet with you, we'll add on all the things that we need to know.
Or if the coordinator gives us a timeline, that's.
And then when we talk to like the DJ or when we talk to the coordinator, we actually, I think, you know, we've said, do you have this timeline in front of you? Are we going off this one? And we kind of like make sure that we're all going off the same one. And if there's something different, then we pull that up, whatever they have, and we kind of like combine it for ourselves. So we kind of, you know, encourage everybody. And I know I've said that to couples. Like what I did was have one timeline and then printed out copies or emailed copies to every single vendor, the same one, so that everyone's on the same page. So we kind of say that to our couples too. Like, we don't need multiples. We're not going to send you one if you already have one, but if you didn't get one, we can send you one. But even then, we're going to follow up with everyone and make sure that they also are on the same page as this.
And the thing is, we're both really flexible. So if the wedding coordinator came to us and said, hey, I had to move some stuff around, I don't think that's an issue at all. I'm trying to think of like anything specific, like maybe like the moment shots. Like if that was moved, that would maybe be an issue.
I think what really kind of takes issue out of any of that is that we always have 2 weeks prior to the wedding a meeting with the client. And right before that, we talk to all the vendors to make sure that if there were any changes, anything that was discussed, and anything that's not jiving, we go over that so that when we meet with them, we're addressing that, and then kind of like relaying like, oh, so and so mentioned this. If that's changing, then we're gonna have to move this around if you guys are okay with that. I feel like we usually go into the day of having a really good idea of where everyone is, and I think we just make sure that we try to work off the same information.
Okay.
But you have to kind of, I know that he's had a hard time. Like, you have to really advocate for yourself and reach out to everyone, make sure we're setting up those meetings with everyone. And I'm sure, Regina, and Kate, like, it really is like it's a effort on your own part, because not everyone is willing or really understands, especially like DJs and stuff. They're like, I don't have anything to do with the video, like,
Yeah.
but we need to know what time they're setting up, so we have our audio set up with them and like their lighting system and all this stuff. So yeah, I think that too, and I don't know if you have something like that, but that like 2-week meeting where we say this is where we're going to finalize all the details is very, very crucial to us. And we make sure that we try to do it in person, but if they can't, we absolutely do like a Zoom video. So we can kind of get a feel for if they're feeling overwhelmed with something or whatever, just to really get a good grasp on it.
Okay. And Kate, like,
I mean, just briefly, no, obviously any information that is coming my way is good information as far as I'm concerned. I don't feel like ownership over their timeline. It's not my day. I tell them right up front when we start talking about it, before we even sign the contract, like, if you want help with your timeline, because often I'm working with couples who do not have coordinators. And unfortunately, sometimes they have had coordinators who weren't that great. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this networking, so we can know exactly who to be referring. But often people don't really have a sense of what's going to happen or what they want, and they don't know, they've never done this before, they don't blah, blah, blah. So I will always say up front, if you need any help, this is not my first rodeo. I'm happy to give you some input, and I can tell you what I've seen work and what I've seen not work. I can tell you the benefits of doing a first look, for example. It's not just to get those pretty pictures. There's other benefits to it as well. But I've never ever sent someone like my photographer timeline. I'm there to document what happens. I can help to make sure that the parts of the day that are going to matter the most to you happen at the most flattering times of the day. If you're willing to take my feedback about that, your pictures will be better. But otherwise, like, I'm a real team player, and I'm, talking to you all is really making me realize, like, I am really good about my communication with my clients. I could be better about my communication with other vendors leading up to the day. So that's something that I'm taking away from this conversation for sure.
Okay. I did want to ask you, Ursula and Paulo, about your packages. So, and about the amount of weddings that you do. So, do you guys find that you're doing a lot of weddings a year? Or I know you do other films and your travel films and things like that, but do you have like a large amount of weddings that you do? And then also what's like your most popular wedding video package, videography package?
So because it's a part-time thing for us, the time that we allot to wedding films, we want to make it as stress-free and simple for us, because again, it starts with, it's a passion thing first, and then it's a business second. So since we're devoting our off time, we want to make sure that we are actually enjoying doing it. So we want to make it stress-free and simple as possible. So when it comes to packages, we don't, and maybe it's a detriment to us, but we only offer one comprehensive package, and then we lay it out for the couple. It includes You get a wedding film, you get full raw footage, you get drone. We don't charge extra if we have to stay past 8 hours, because the way we see it is we're just trying to make the best wedding film that we can, and just keep it simple. Don't have like package 1, 2, 3, 4. I know most people do that, but just for us, it's work that we
And
just
it's a
offer
good business
one
model.
comprehensive package.
It is a good business model. But yeah, I think for us, it's just.
And the thing is, there are some couples that are just like, well, I only need you for 5 hours, 6 hours. And it's like, well, I mean, we don't base our pricing on hours. It's just, here's what you get. If you don't like it, then we're not the right fit for you.
Yeah, I think for us, it's also, you know, people will try to say like, oh, what if I don't do the drone, or what if I don't do this, and what if we only have you for this many hours, and then it really just takes away from the final product, right? And then that's representative of our work, where then all the videos look different, and like some have a lot of emotion and some don't, and some have a lot of detail and some don't. And I think it just kind of, because we have such a small number, you know, like in comparison to people that do it full time, we have a smaller number of videos that we're doing. We don't want any of our work to look like unfinished, or, you know,
It's
because
missing stuff
because someone wanted to like save money. So we always say, you know, this is the final product and you get all of this. And we promise that it'll be, you know, that it'll be what you want.
And in terms of number, we have a cap, so we don't do more than 10. So 10 is our limit. I'm trying to think of like,
I don't even know how we came up with that number. We just,
yeah, I think once we did like 6 or 7 in a year, and then we were like, that was a lot. That was a lot, especially because we have full-time jobs. So it was just like,
and the
okay,
editing
what, I mean,
time.
realistically, what could we do at 10 before we start to
Feel stressed and feel like we're
and dislike
away.
it? And that's the last thing we want. We don't want to get burned out from it, because it's not just wedding films. Like, if we're sometimes we're shooting other promotional stuff sometimes, and then there are other times we just want to take a weekend where we're just shooting whatever we want to shoot. It's not paid.
Like
It's
keeping
just
up on our
me and her
skills
going out into the woods or whatever, and then shooting like a small little short film or something like that. I mean, that, because ultimately it's passion first and then business second.
And it allows, I think, you especially to like hone in on
Yeah.
different skills and trying new techniques and stuff like that. And then we hear that from like our couples, like, oh, that, and it's so funny that, and now that we hear from our wedding couples, like saying things like that transition and stuff, which like I would never expect. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool that they like noticed that,
like,
you know?
Oh, that transition you did in your Morocco film. Can we do that in our in our wedding film? Like, yeah, let's give it a whirl. Let's see how that works.
When we went to California, I remember we had that conversation with the photographer. We're like, this bride said she wants transition, so we're gonna be doing some weird things. And so we'd like let him know and give him like a heads up, like, all right, we're gonna be sweeping in real weird and like going around in circles.
Yeah, I don't think he knew what we were talking.
Yeah, he was like,
I don't think he knew what we were talking about. But then he's like, okay, Paulo, go do your transitions.
He said the couple doesn't want transitions. It's transition time. We're like,
okay. So yeah, it's we keep it at 10, because we just want that flexibility. So
yeah.
And then one package.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy, emotion. And when you're doing it full time, you're like always in it, you know, like the editing, all that. It's a lot.
So I have a question. Like, do you offer multiple packages, or like what has worked best for you? What has made your life easier?
Yeah, I do. I have 3 tiers.
Yeah.
And basically it's just, it is about the hours of coverage within each package, just because people do tend to want vastly different things. And for my couples, you know, I have had people who hired me for these 2-hour micro weddings, and then people hiring me for 10-hour weddings.
Right.
Those are just 2 totally different beasts. So within packages, there is a time difference. But then basically it's about the end product. So my base level collection has all of the digital images and an engagement session. So I'm not like withholding digitals, but I always hope for couples to get one of, you know, either the middle or the higher package, because they come with art, and the highest package comes with like the most badass album you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
And it's expensive, and I think that they're going to freaking love it in 30 years. So that's what I try and convince them is going to be worthwhile.
Right.
Ultimately, like with what we are all pulling off, it is a day that, like you said, it flies by. It's a freaking blur when you're experiencing it. And part of the magic that you and I are trying to pull off is giving them something to hold on to, that they can go back and relive and time travel and like tell themselves the story again, and learn something about the day that they didn't know the day of, because they didn't see it. You know, they didn't see everything that you and I saw. And I don't want that whole story to live on a thumb drive in their junk drawer.
Right.
I just don't. I want it to live, if at all possible, if it's within their budget, I want it to live on the wall, and I want it to live in a book that they can take off the shelf and open up when people come over and look through when they're feeling sad, and, you know, want it to be
Right. No,
tangible.
That's great.
absolutely.
So that's why I have collections.
Yeah, no, it's a great business model, and it makes, I think for photography too, it, like you said, people want such different things. They want different coverage, and I mean, your job is not as like clear cut as ours, where we're just like filming all day, you know, so it you have so many different elements to it.
Right.
Yeah, I really do. Like when I started shooting weddings, most of the time I was not seeing videographers. And then I started seeing more and more for whatever reason. And I didn't have a great couple first experiences for the reason that Regina kind of mentioned earlier. I found, especially like a lot of these younger guys, they're oblivious, you know, it's like anybody else. They have a job, they're on a mission, they're there to do it. I'm sure they're very good at it, but it's like nobody else exists. So it's like, that was a little challenging. And then when I started working with some more experienced and just better videographers, I started to see the final product, I was like, oh, this is why this is such an important service. Like, this isn't, at first I felt like demeaned or something, like what, the photos aren't going to be enough. And now I see so clearly, it's like, oh my God, we are doing two totally different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they're both so valuable, you know. So I really appreciate what you guys do.
Oh.
And it definitely wasn't, you're right, like it wasn't a thing that people really felt that they needed. I remember when we were planning I mean, we didn't even have a wedding videographer for one of our weddings, and you know,
we had two weddings.
So did I.
So
so, but yeah, and the one that we did was like last minute, and it really, like, I remember the conversations where like everyone would say, and I'm sure you guys remember hearing this, like, you never watch your wedding video, you know, like, because it used to be those long videos, and everyone was telling us that, and it used to be such a different kind of space, and now it's definitely changing, which, you know, we're very appreciative, but it's definitely taken off a lot more in recent years, and like you're saying, they become more professional rather than just someone, you know, holding a
camcorder, yeah,
day, right? Like now it's an actual art form.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did want to ask a question about that. So I remember my parents getting married, and it was like when we wanted to watch their wedding video. Do you guys want to watch the wedding video? Yeah, of course. And then being like, oh my gosh, when is this thing over? You know. So I do remember that. So, but that just brought me back to your comment that you give the raw footage with your packages. So how do you? So do your packages come with like a teaser video and then like a short wedding film, as well as like a bunch of hours of raw footage that they can do with whatever they please? Or
so yeah, the main wedding film is about 5 to 7 minutes, and we found that that's kind of like the sweet spot in terms of keeping people's attention. And then what we think we do differently in our wedding films is that the first minute is kind of acts like a teaser / trailer in itself, where it's kind of like a highlight mismatch of the day. So whoever watches it, it's kind of like the couple's thrown in your face. It starts from the beginning, and then it'll include even like reception and even sparkler send-offs maybe in the intro, whereas typically it's like kind of, you know, linear. In most other wedding films, we kind of mix it up where we throw everything in the beginning and then it kind of goes down the linear path.
Yeah, that way, like even if you don't know the couple, if you're watching it, you kind of get a feel for them, their story. You get a feel for them, you know, what they're like, of their love, of their family, their like their whole day. So you don't need to know them personally to kind of be invested emotionally, like right in that first minute.
Yeah, we use the first minute. It's like a hook. It's supposed to pull you in emotionally, and then hopefully you stay to watch the rest of the the film. And then so yeah, they have the 5 to 7 minute film, and then in terms of raw footage, we include things like the full ceremony, the reception, intro, dances, speeches, all that stuff, and really the couple can do whatever they want with it. It's just the way we see it. It's your day, it's your footage, because there's going to be stuff that we're not going to include, but we know that's maybe important to you. We just didn't include it because it didn't fit best in the actual film. Like it just didn't, because it's like putting a puzzle together and some pieces just don't fit, and but we know it's still important, so we want to at least give that to the couple so they can watch that if they want.
And our raw footage, like we don't film in the way where it's like continuous. It's all you know, like spliced. So we tell them, you know, these big events, like you said, ceremony, cake cutting, first dances, though, like that's the raw footage. We splice it. It's raw, not colored, no music, this and that. But we do splice it together. So you have like the full coverage. So it's not like we give them like all of the raw footage, like all the stuff like moving around.
So it's not like, oh, I have to watch 3 hours just to get to the reception speeches.
So it's like
its own file of just the speeches, of just the intros, of just the dances. So
and then you know, we ask them if there's anything else that they really want us to capture, something special, and we try our best to be able to splice that all together too. A little visit.
Yeah, sorry, a little Yorkie harassment.
Needed attention. It's been way too long.
I know. Thank you for answering that. I was curious about that too, and I love that my fabulous detail-oriented co-host thought to actually ask a follow-up question, because I was just like, oh, okay, moving right along, big picture.
I usually get like the teaser, and then I'm always like, I wonder what else they got. Like, what else comes with the package? I haven't been married yet, so I don't know.
Yeah. I think we should ask one more question. We have gone way over with you guys because you're so fabulous. So I'm sorry. We really appreciate how much time you've given us. I know. I was like, oh, Lord.
Let's do this all the time.
I know. You guys can just be, you know, repeat guests. You can come back as much as you want. So final question, it's kind of a feel-good question. What is your favorite part of the wedding?
Oh, boy. Don't make me go first. I don't know.
Like what is, and it could be from an artist's perspective, you know, like what's your favorite part, the part that you know is going to be like the zinger in your final film?
Mine is actually, it's not really a professional answer. It's not a professional answer at all. I love the dance party at the end. Like, I think it's so fun when everyone finally lets loose, and everyone's just like having a great time. People are doing like all sorts of crazy things. And to be honest, that was actually one of the reasons why we're like, we're going to stay for after, because everyone always, like, as soon as all the main stuff is done, everyone leaves. But like some of the footage that we capture of when people are dancing and like drunk and like just finally like done with the day, it's hilarious. People will just completely lose their mind at the end of the night, and it's so funny. And I love being like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if I'm capturing anything, but I love being in there with the camera and everyone's just like going crazy. Like, I mean, it's just that's my favorite part. I live for that, because at the end it's everyone's personalities, like real personalities come out, like family members and stuff like that. It's just so fun.
So I think for the film, the moment shots are probably I would maybe your favorite too, because really those those money shots are what's going to pull people in to the
Tell people what you mean by moment
so like
shots.
moment shots. So it's when we take the couple aside for about 15-20 minutes when the lighting is just amazing. It's golden hour. And we just tell the couple, hey, have a moment, get away from the busyness and the craziness of the day and just have a moment between you two. And don't mind us. We're just going to stand right here and record it. And then we'll make it dreamy in the film. For us, like that's incredibly important and probably my favorite just because
and you get to know the couple too and like how they are together
and then you're cracking
interact.
jokes with them, you're you're capturing those candid moments between the two of them because throughout the day they're just beelining from first look to ceremony to cocktail to reception and all that stuff. So we like to capture those moments where they can just kind of breathe and just enjoy the moment in the day.
And really, so that just made me feel warm and gooey inside because, you know, this is a thing that we all do often. It's a thing that we do as a business and we go to a lot of weddings and, you know, a certain amount of that becomes, you know, not the same, but there's a rhythm that you kind of get into. There's sort of expectations that you have when you guests of a lot of weddings know this, but there are those unique things that happen that are special to those two people and to their community. And that's really where the heart is. And Irsa, when you were talking about the end of the night dance party, you reminded me of like at the normal parts of the wedding where everyone else is getting emotional, I'm not, partially because I can't hear a damn thing. But also it's because I cannot get emotional because I need to be capturing this shit, you know? But there was one wedding, it was one of my earlier weddings. It was a couple who I really, really loved, a lesbian couple. I think you guys all know a lot of my clients are queer, LGBTQ. And this was a couple who was special to me. I knew some of the people in their community, and they got married at a children's museum back in Madison, Wisconsin. And they had the coolest guest list. Like everyone was dressed to the nines, super stylish, like super fun and funky. And their dance floor was hopping. One of them is a musician, so they had the best best song list. And I was on the second floor shooting down on this dance floor, and this song came on. I wasn't familiar with it, but everyone else was, and everyone like, you know, was doing this dance together that I'd never seen done before. And it got really choked up because I'm up here watching this beautiful group of human beings have the fucking time of their lives together. It was so gorgeous. It was a whole room full of queer people, and it just hit me like, how could anyone possibly be against this? You know, like how could anyone possibly stand in judgment of these beautiful human beings who are like fully enjoying life right now? So anyway, that's where that just took me.
I know.
That was nice.
I know.
That was nice, Kate.
We're all gonna go and cry now.
I know.
I was gonna say something, and I was like, I don't even want to say anything after that.
No, you guys are so amazing. I truly, truly like recommend you whenever I have the chance, and I hope that we can work another wedding again soon.
I hope us three can work together someday soon.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I haven't had the chance to work with you guys, and now I'm like super excited. Like, oh man, I hope I'm gonna start recommending them. I want somebody to work with them. Like, you guys have been awesome.
Yeah, just tell your couples, well, I'm not gonna do it unless you hire Kate and unless you hire John Films, and then we're not gonna work with you if you don't.
Right.
Work with Kate.
It's a package deal.
It's
like a cartel. So
It's getting dangerous.
Anything else you guys wanted to say before we kind of close up here?
No. I feel like we left on such an emotional note. It's kind of hard to follow up. No, I mean, we're just thankful that we get to do this and that you guys invited us to this podcast to talk all this out because these are such important, you know, topics, and it's, you know, it's important that we're all discussing what everyone's doing, and like we talked about, not relying on just like the outside kind of appearance, and you know, we're keeping up with what works for each other and how we can work best as a team.